Snow fell in soft silence across London's empty streets, dusting rooftops and glowing beneath the amber streetlights. Inside a grand mansion on Kensington Lane, Victoria Hale sat alone beside a flickering fireplace, her reflection caught in the glass of a half-finished wine. Another Christmas Eve. Another night pretending the loneliness didn't hurt. But when the doorbell suddenly rang, piercing the quiet, she had no idea that opening that door would change her life and her heart forever. Victoria Hale was the kind of woman people admired, but never really knew. The tabloids called her the Ice Queen of London Finance, a title she neither liked nor denied. At 40, she'd built Hale Enterprises from nothing, turned millions into billions, and earned every ounce of respect. Yet every success seemed to cost her a piece of her soul. Her mansion was filled with designer art, rare books, and silence. Silence so loud it sometimes made her chest ache. That Christmas Eve was no different. The city was aglow with lights, laughter, and love, but her home felt like a museum, polished and lifeless. Her assistant had left early, her chef was away visiting family, and the only sound came from the ticking of an antique clock. Victoria wrapped herself in a cashmere blanket, convincing herself that solitude was strength, that love was a distraction. But as she stared at the snow outside, she whispered to no one, "Just one Christmas. One where I don't have to be alone." Then came the knock. Faint at first, then again, louder. Her first instinct was to ignore it. People didn't just show up at her door uninvited. Yet something inside her stirred, a pulse of curiosity, maybe hope. She set down her glass, stood, and walked toward the entrance, each step echoing through the marble hall. When she opened the door, the last thing she expected was a little girl in a red coat, shivering, holding a man's hand. Hi," the man said, brushing snow from his jacket. His voice was warm but nervous. "Sorry for bothering you, ma'am. There's been a bit of a mix-up. We were delivering a Christmas package to a Hale residence, but I think it's the wrong one." Victoria blinked, taken aback. The man looked about 35, tired eyes, kind face, the sort of weariness that came from working too hard and loving too deeply. The little girl beside him peeked from behind his coat, her cheeks rosy from the cold. "I'm Lily," she whispered. "Merry Christmas." Victoria felt something melt inside her chest. "You must be freezing. Come in," she said before she could stop herself. The man hesitated. "Oh no, we couldn't possibly. I insist," she interrupted. "It's snowing too hard to be out there." As they stepped inside, warmth filled the entryway. Lily's eyes widened at the tall tree decorated in gold and white. "It's like a palace," she said, her voice full of wonder. Victoria almost smiled. Almost. She didn't know it yet, but that small act of kindness, letting them in, would become the start of something she hadn't felt in years. Connection. The man introduced himself as Ethan Moore, a single dad from East London. He worked part-time as a delivery driver, picking up extra shifts over the holidays to buy his daughter a few presents. "The address on the parcel was smudged," he explained, holding up a soaked cardboard box. "Thought I could drop it off before heading home." Victoria nodded. "You've certainly gone above and beyond your duty." Her tone was calm, but her mind was spinning. She hadn't had visitors in years, not ones who came with snowflakes in their hair and warmth in their smiles. "Why don't you stay until the storm eases?" she suggested. "It's not safe to drive in this weather." Ethan looked reluctant. "We don't want to intrude." Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Please, Daddy." The lady said it's okay. That decided it. Within minutes, Victoria found herself pouring hot chocolate into delicate porcelain cups, something she'd never done for anyone before. As they sat by the fire, Lily's laughter filled the space, echoing off the high ceilings. And for the first time in a decade, the mansion didn't feel empty. As snow thickened outside, Ethan offered to fix the flickering lights on the Christmas tree. "Used to do this with my wife," he said quietly, untangling a string of bulbs. Victoria caught the heaviness in his tone and decided not to pry. "Used to?" she asked gently. He hesitated, then said, "She passed away 2 years ago. Cancer." The words were simple, but the ache behind them was deep. "Lily still thinks she visits us in the snow," he added, forcing a small smile. Victoria looked at the little girl, now sleeping peacefully on the couch. Something about their bond, fragile yet fierce, stirred a memory she'd long buried. Her own mother, lost when she was 12, and the cold silence that followed. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "No one deserves to face that." Ethan nodded. "And you? You always spend Christmas alone?" She hesitated. "Yes, easier that way." "Or lonelier," he said simply. The honesty stung, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. As the night deepened, Victoria found herself listening more than speaking. Ethan talked about his struggles, juggling jobs, raising Lily, trying to keep her smiling despite everything. His humility disarmed her. She'd met men who measured worth in money, but Ethan measured it in moments. He told her how he'd once dreamed of opening a small cafe, a place where families could feel at home. "But dreams don't pay bills," he said, laughing sadly. Victoria felt something twist in her chest. Guilt, maybe admiration. She had all the money in the world, but not one real dream left. When he offered to help clean up, she shook her head. "You're my guests." The word guests felt strange on her tongue, like a word she hadn't used in years. Later, as she tucked a blanket over Lily, she whispered, "You're welcome to stay tonight. The roads are too dangerous." Ethan hesitated, then nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Miss Hale. You've saved us from sleeping in the car." Victoria turned off the lights and stood by the window, watching the snow fall. For once, it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. Morning light spilled through the curtains, painting the marble floors in gold. The smell of coffee and pancakes drifted from the kitchen, a smell Victoria hadn't woken up to in years. She followed the sound and found Ethan flipping pancakes while Lily giggled from the counter. "You're cooking in my kitchen?" she teased, crossing her arms. Ethan grinned. "Couldn't let you start Christmas without breakfast." She tried to look annoyed, but the warmth in the room broke through her defenses. They ate together, laughing at Lily's attempts to cut her pancakes into heart shapes. Victoria didn't realize how much she'd missed this. The noise, the connection, the simplicity of being seen. After breakfast, Lily ran to the tree and asked, "Miss Victoria, do you have presents?" Victoria hesitated. "I don't usually do gifts," Lily gasped. "But everyone deserves a Christmas present." Ethan chuckled. "She's right, you know." That afternoon, they decided to make their own gifts. Paper snowflakes, drawings, stories. Victoria found herself laughing until tears came. It was the first Christmas she'd ever felt alive. By evening, the snowstorm had calmed. Ethan prepared to leave, packing their things quietly. Victoria stood by the door, not ready to say goodbye. "You could stay another night," she said softly. "Just until the roads are clear." Ethan smiled. "You've been more generous than you know. We'll never forget this." Lily ran to hug Victoria's legs. "Thank you for saving our Christmas." When the door closed behind them, the silence returned, but it was different now. Warmer. Filled with the echoes of laughter and love. Hours later, Victoria found a small paper heart left behind on the coffee table. In Lily's handwriting were the words, "You're not alone anymore." Victoria sat down and cried, not out of sadness, but because for the first time she believed it might be true. Days turned into weeks. The city moved on from Christmas, but Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Ethan and Lily. She told herself it was just gratitude, They'd reminded her what kindness felt like. Yet, every time she passed a cafe, she imagined Ethan's dream. One morning, she found herself searching for him online. It didn't take long. Moore's Delivery appeared under a local listing. She hesitated for an hour before sending a message. You once said you wanted to open a cafe. Meet me tomorrow. I have a proposal. When he arrived at her office the next day, nervous but smiling, she laid out her idea, an investment in his cafe, not as charity, but as a partnership. Ethan was stunned. Why would you do that for me? Victoria looked him in the eyes. Because you reminded me what life feels like. The following months transformed everything. They found a small corner shop in Notting Hill, bright windows, creaky floors, perfect for their new cafe, the Winter Door, named after the night they met. Victoria funded the project but insisted Ethan handle the design. Lily picked the colors, soft cream and warm gold. It should feel like hugs, she said proudly. When the cafe opened that spring, it was packed from day one. Locals loved the homemade desserts, but more than that, they loved the warmth that radiated from Ethan, Lily, and yes, even Victoria, who now smiled more than she ever had. Her board thought she'd lost her mind. A CEO running a cafe? They whispered. But Victoria no longer cared about reputation. She cared about joy. Months later, on a rainy afternoon, Ethan found her sitting by the window, lost in thought. You ever regret helping me? He asked. She smiled softly. Every day I didn't live like this. That's what I regret. He nodded. You changed our lives, Victoria. She turned to him. No, Ethan. You changed mine. As he reached across the table, their hands brushed. It was a small moment, but it carried the weight of everything unspoken. Gratitude, affection, and the beginning of something more. Spring melted into summer, and the Winter Door became the heart of its little London neighborhood. Children came for cocoa and cinnamon buns, old couples lingered for hours, and young dreamers found peace in its soft music and kind smiles. Victoria often worked behind the counter, her elegant hands learning the rhythm of coffee making, the hiss of steam, the swirl of milk. For someone who had spent her life commanding boardrooms, there was something humbling and healing about serving others. Ethan noticed it every day. The woman who once hid behind walls of wealth now laughed easily, teased customers, and told Lily bedtime stories in the back booth. Sometimes he'd catch her looking out the window, eyes distant, and he'd know she was still learning to forgive her past. One evening, after closing time, Ethan poured her a cup of tea. You know, he said, you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. She met his gaze. I've been alone for so long, I'm not sure I remember how not to. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. Then let me remind you. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was full of promise. But peace never lasts without challenge. In late August, an unexpected letter arrived from Hale Enterprises, the very empire Victoria had built. Her board was calling an emergency meeting. Rumors of conflict of interest had spread after news broke about her involvement in a local cafe. Investors feared she was losing focus. Victoria stood before the mirror that morning, her old armor, a navy power suit, hanging perfectly on her shoulders. She barely recognized the reflection. The cold, sharp woman she used to be stared back at her. Maybe they're right, she whispered. Ethan walked in, concern in his eyes. You don't have to go back there, he said. You've already proven yourself. I have to, she replied quietly. But not for them, for me. I need to face the person I used to be. As she left for the meeting, Lily hugged her tightly. Don't forget, Miss Victoria, happiness is more important than money. Her heart softened. I'll try to remember that, sweetheart. The boardroom was as she'd left it. Sterile, glass walls reflecting the skyline, men in tailored suits looking at her like a puzzle they couldn't solve. Ms. Hale, one began. We've received concerns that your involvement in a coffee shop suggests misplaced priorities. She straightened her back. You mean humanity? The room went silent. You hired me because I knew how to win, she continued. But what you never asked was what that winning cost. I lost my joy, my purpose, and nearly my soul. So yes, I run a cafe, and it's the best decision I've ever made. One man scoffed. Are you resigning then? Victoria smiled calmly. No, I'm redefining what leadership looks like. When she walked out, she felt lighter. For the first time, she'd spoken her truth, not as a CEO, but as a human being. That night, she returned to the winter door, exhausted but glowing. Ethan met her at the door, wiping flour from his hands. How'd it go? She smiled. Let's just say the Ice Queen melted a few egos. He laughed, and for a moment, everything felt right. But as the laughter faded, Victoria grew quiet. Ethan, I've spent my whole life building something that didn't love me back. This cafe, you and Lily, this feels real, and that scares me. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. You don't have to be afraid of love, Victoria. She swallowed. But what if I'm not good at it? He smiled. Love isn't something you're good at. It's something you give. Their eyes met, and this time, neither of them looked away. By autumn, their friendship had deepened into something undeniable. Victoria and Ethan found rhythm in shared mornings, whispered jokes, and late-night cleanups. But as feelings grew, so did fear. One afternoon, she overheard two customers gossiping. Can you believe Victoria Hale, the billionaire, playing house with a delivery driver? Their words stung more than she expected. Old insecurities whispered that she didn't belong here, that love between two worlds couldn't last. That evening, she pulled away, distant and cold again. Ethan noticed immediately. Did I do something wrong? No, she said too quickly. I just need space. He nodded slowly, his eyes dimming. If that's what you want. When he left, the cafe felt emptier than her mansion ever had. Weeks passed in silence. Ethan respected her distance, though it broke his heart. Lily still stopped by with drawings for Miss Victoria, each one left quietly at the counter. Then came December, their one-year anniversary since that snowy night. The cafe's decorations sparkled, but Victoria couldn't bring herself to attend the staff party. She stayed home, staring at the same door she'd opened a year ago, wondering if she'd just let the best part of her life walk away. That night, she found Lily S.'s latest drawing in her coat pocket, a picture of the three of them holding hands under falling snow. Beneath it, Lily had written, "Christmas is happier when we're together." Tears blurred her vision. For once, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat and keys and drove through the snow. Ethan and Lily were at home, wrapping gifts, when a knock echoed through their small apartment. When he opened the door, Victoria stood there, breathless, trembling, snowflakes clinging to her hair. "I'm sorry," she said before he could speak. "I let fear ruin something beautiful. I was so used to being alone that when love finally found me, I ran." Ethan stepped closer, eyes soft. "You didn't ruin it. You just needed to find your way back." Lily ran to her, wrapping her tiny arms around Victoria's legs. "You came back!" Victoria knelt, hugging her tightly. "I'll never stay away again." And in that small, messy apartment, far from wealth and power, she finally felt home. Christmas Eve returned like déjà vu. Snow falling gently, the world wrapped in quiet magic. But this time, Victoria wasn't alone in her mansion. She'd invited Ethan and Lily to celebrate there, not as guests, but as family. The tree shimmered with golden lights, and laughter filled every corner. They cooked together, danced clumsily to old carols, and shared stories until the fire dimmed. At midnight, Ethan handed her a small box. Inside was a silver keychain engraved with a snowflake and the words, "Our door." She looked up, eyes wet. "Our door?" He smiled. "The one you opened a year ago. The one that changed everything." She touched his cheek, her voice trembling. "You and Lily gave me Christmas back." He leaned in, and their lips met. Soft, slow, inevitable. Outside, the world was silent, but inside, it was full of life. A year later, the winter door expanded, not for profit, but to give back. Victoria used her influence to start a foundation for single parents and families in need. Every December, the cafe hosted a Warm Hearts dinner, offering free meals and gifts for anyone struggling through the season. Ethan ran the kitchen, Victoria managed the program, and Lily, now 7, acted as Chief Joy Officer, spreading smiles to every guest. One evening, as Victoria watched families laugh and eat, she turned to Ethan. "I used to think success meant being powerful," she said. "Now I think it means being useful." He nodded. "And loved." She smiled. "And loved." On the second anniversary of their fateful meeting, snow once again blanketed the streets of London. Victoria stood by the cafe window, holding a mug of cocoa, watching Lily hang a sign that read, "Love lives here." Ethan walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Hard to believe how much can change from one doorbell," he whispered. She leaned into him. "It wasn't just a knock, Ethan. It was fate reminding me that life begins when we let people in." He smiled. "So what's next for us?" She turned, eyes glimmering. "Whatever comes. Together." As snow fell outside and laughter echoed through the winter door, the woman who once waited alone every Christmas finally found her forever home. Not in the mansion she built, but in the hearts she opened. Sometimes miracles don't arrive in grand gestures. They show up as a father, a child, and a knock at the door.